welcome everyone to the January 2025 book where we are discussing the anxious. I don't know if you can see it or not. Though it's very blurred. So we are discussing the book Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. This book was actually given to me by a very close friend as a Christmas gift, and rightly so. I have cherished every single bit of it. It is a very important topic for me personally because being the father of two girls, it is a thing which is always at the back of your mind that when in raising the kids in especially in the digital age, how uh, what are the things you need to be considering, what are the challenges as a parent you would have to tackle, what challenges your parents have not faced in past and you will have to face, especially while bringing up kids in this digital age. So all that needs to be taken into consideration, and for us, especially in this generation, we are bringing in kids who are exposed to technology a lot much more than what we had been while we were growing up. And so it brings a very important topic up for discussion, is that how to tackle that challenge between the with the kids when while they are growing up, and when is the best time to introduce technology to them. And when I say technology to them, I'm especially talking about social media. um, so the book, I always say that, if you pick up a book, whether you can bring that book to the beach or not. This particular book is not a beach book. It is something which you can study in it really needs a little bit of study. It's not one of those books whereby you can just uh, pick up and on a trip or something. It needs a little bit of cognitive thinking. So I would not recommend it as a beach book, which is one of those factors which I personally rate books on, whether it's a relaxing thing, learn a thing or two, and that will turn it off. But for me, it's a little bit more than that. So this particular book has been divided into four parts, 12 chapters, and close to 289 pages. It will roughly take you around 6 to 7 hours to go through the book. It's a very well written book, follows the typical guidelines of how a book progresses. For example, in terms of um, p- introducing the problem statement, introducing the hope that it can be resolved, and the ending is the providing the solution. So the book progresses in that four parts, and it brings a lot of things up for discussion. It brings a lot of up things which are in the back of the mind of a parent while raising kids in the digital age. It brings a, the points about responsibility of us being adults, of us being parents, of us being the community, and also the roles which the institutions such as a government or a school system can provide, right? So different roles and responsibility, because raising up a kid, it takes a village to raise a kid, as they would say, right? So it is the responsibility of the whole village, and what are the parts each one need to play to fulfill that. Now, why the author chose the title called as Anxious Generation, and what is so peculiar about generations these days, whereby you really have to understand a particular generation. And by the way, what do we mean by generations as such? So, um, post World War II, every generation has been classified as one, and rightly so, because the period from World War II to now has been a age of rapid innovation as well as technology development. So every generation saw something which the previous generation had never seen. My dad saw a telephone line coming into homes, which my grandfather never saw. I saw mobile phones or pagers coming in, which my kids even don't know about, like what a pager is. And the kids who are born today are born into the age of completely digital landscape, that they don't even know that what life would be without WhatsApp and without aeroplanes and without any technology which is out there. So because the innovation and technology has happened in such a rapid scale in the past century, or close to close to 3/4 of a century, that every generation has a different perspective about the world around them. So the people who are born between 81 to 95 are referred to as millennials. So they have a view of life. They uh, see the world through a different lens compared to people who are born after 95. So after 95 until 2010, people who are born are particularly called as Gen Z. It is a very important topic to classify Gen Z, because Gen Z is who either they are entering the workspace right now, or are planning to enter into the workspace. And so it is very important for people and organizations or institutions to learn and understand how Gen Z thinks, right? So this is the categorization. And afterwards, Gen Alpha is someone who was born after 2010, who are basically born where technology is just readily available. Super fast internet is just readily available. I mean, when I was in 8th standard, if I had to connect up to the internet, and I'm not talking about phone, like if I have to connect the PC on the internet, I literally have to put a dial-in connection. A whole another process of waiting 5 minutes, how the dial-up works. If to today's kid, they cannot even comprehend what a dial-up internet connection would mean, right? So depending upon how the technology has advanced over the past quarter of a century, how the world has changed over a quarter of century, every generation is classified as one, because they think. So it's a group or subset of people who think about the world in a different way. So that is what generations are called. So aptly, now the generation, as what he defines in this particular book, is called as anxious generation. And now what is making um, the generation right now very very anxious? So that is where Jonathan Hadid, the author of the book Anxious Generation, does a fantastic job in defining the problem, in understanding what went wrong, and could go wrong further. But what are the more importantly, what are the steps which parents can take, what institutions can take, and what government bodies can take to minimize that impact? But before that, let's see, is the generation actually anxious, or the claim which the author is making, the anxious generation, is that claim really verified? That is the generation of today's age really anxious? So the author gives out stats, and there are very scary graphs which are in the book. But yeah, Manoj, you have a question, you raise your hand.
Yeah, Bharat. So,
Hmm.
so here when you mentioned about the generation, right, the anxious
Yeah.
generation, just want to
Yes.
understand which generation is it referring to? The anxious generation. Is it the millennials? Is it the Gen Z or the Gen Alpha?
It's Gen Z.
It's a Gen Z. So it's
It,
referring to the Gen Z anxiousness, is it?
yes, the people who are in between 15 to 25 right now. So
15 to 24 right now. Okay.
yeah, or 15 years old or 25 years old right now, who people who are entering into workspace right now.
Okay. Sure,
Hmm.
sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to understand. I mean, once probably towards the later part, once you share what the challenges, the mindset of the Gen Z are. I mean, I would also say, I mean, I think the two of us probably in the millennial generation, we have some kind of anxiousness as well, right? For example, to give you a simple example about kids, right? We want our kids who are probably 7 8 years or less than 10 year old, to have multiple set of activities. There's also a fear of missing out on multiple aspects, right? So probably I would want to probably later to see what is the difference between the anxiousness that probably you have read through in the Gen Z generation versus
Yes.
your personal experience about does it resonate with the anxiety or the this one that you see in the millennial generation?
Yes. It's slightly different. It's I would say a little bit more. The contrast is different. So because um, what the book talks about is mental health issues of kids who are born after 95. Kids who are born before 95 still had a good childhood, right?
Mhm.
And the book introduces or this concept called as um, play based childhood as well as phone based childhood. Now, what play based childhood would mean that when we were growing up, we had a lot more flexibility and authority to go around in the neighborhood and play as what we like to be compared to the kids right now. I mean, if a kid has to go outside of the apartment, they cannot. Has the world grown safer in the last 20-25 years, or has it grown more scarier? It definitely has become more safer right now compared to what it was back then, but still the boundaries which we have created for our kids has increased. And so that, including the introduction of social media, the introduction of technologies to our kids, has caused mental health issues in the Gen Z. It is not talking about in this book the anxiousness of millennials, or the FOMO which they are having, or everything what they want to do. It is not talking about the parents. It is about the kids. It is more focusing on the kids. And what the stats which the book gives is, and I would like to show here, I don't know if you can see it or not, I think it's a little blur, so I'm using a filter blur, so it will not be able to, but if you see these stats here in the book, it's in the first chapter itself. And it shows that how much um, major depression episodes have happened in United Kingdom in the last uh, from the period between 2010 to 2015 to 2020. And during the period, especially between this was a period between 2010 and 2015, is where uh, depressive episodes for girls have increased by 145%, and for boys it has increased by 161%. Emergency room visits for self harm, if kids have self harm themselves, number of cases for girls it has increased by 188%. For boys it has increased by 48%, and this is the period between 2010 and 2015. Now, suicide cases for young adolescents have increased for girls 167%, and for boys 91%. Now, being the father of two girls, me personally, it is a scary figure. To So I am glued from the first chapter to understand that what is causing these spike in mental health issues for Gen Zs between 2010 and 2015. And the author does a fantastic job that he is not building up the suspense and giving the answer in the very last. He is giving you the answer in the first chapter itself. It says that the iPhone got introduced in 2007, and social media actually got developed in 2009. And this was the same time when Gen Z was entering teenage or was going through puberty. And 2010 was the first time that the technology companies or manufacturing companies introduced the front facing camera, right? And it was around that time in 2012 when Facebook acquired Instagram, and through that platform it got widely spread. So 2007 iPhone got introduced, 2009 social media came, to 2010 front faced camera, and Facebook acquired Instagram in 2010. And the period between 2010 and 2015 is where the mental health crisis for the kids, for the children, have increased exponentially. And it is not that it has spiked and then came down. It has spiked and has been there. And during this period between millennial and Gen Z, the trends in parenting have moved, like I was talking about the protection in the compound, that there is overprotection in the real world and there is underprotection in the virtual world. I have family members that who would not allow the kid to go out outside the compound, but when the kids were young, they themselves introduced the iPads to them. And at that point in time, not a lot of people knew about what the harm a digital device or a technological device could do to the kids. So a lot of parents at very early age in 2010 or something introduced uh, uh, oh, sorry, please go on mute. They introduced iPads to their kids. And now the same, I mean, within my family I know people who introduced iPads to their kids and now are struggling with a teenage who is addicted to video games, who is addicted to YouTube, who is addicted to Minecraft, so much so that they are causing self harm in terms of their own studies, right? So the parenting trend moved from a play based childhood to a very phone based childhood, and what it has caused is sleep deprivation, it has called social deprivation, it has called attention fragmentation, as well as addiction to social media as well as technological devices. So this is some of the stats which the author puts up in the very beginning that helps us to understand that the severity of the problem and why the generation which we are talking about, which is the Gen Z, is getting anxious and anxious. And the book also talks about, and there is a full dedicated chapter in this book, which if anyone of you would want to borrow, and I can give it to you because I've already read it. There is a full dedicated chapter which says that why social media is harmful to girls more than it is to boys. There are many factors, and but first try to understand that how teenage girls are using social media, or how teenage boys are using social media. So usually the girls, when like I said, right, in 2010, the self front facing camera got introduced for the first time, right? So it was that time that during they teenage girls and boys, they started using Instagram and other social media applications. With the introduction of self front facing camera, a lot of them started posting pictures of themselves. Now with that, what came is that a lot of application companies started developing these filters, right? So the reflection each girl saw in the mirror of herself got less and less attractive compared to the pictures which she's seeing of these beautiful Instagram models or people who are using filters. So a normal person can never compare herself or himself to a person who is using a lot of filters or putting a very edited image of themselves, which is not true, by the way. But at that point in time, when you are a teenager, when you are going through puberty, during a lot of emotional cocktail and emotions which are going through your body, you are not able to comprehend that what is real and what is not. And during this period, when you are comparing, constantly comparing yourself with others, and with social media, you're not comparing yourself with the people around you or in your neighborhood. You're comparing yourself to the world. And with comparison comes anxiety, right? And that's how the author rightly names that book as anxious generation, and but so that is for the teenage girls. But what happens for the boys is on another level altogether, that boys may not be using the Instagram or Snapchat or other social media as much, but they get addicted to multiplayer video games, they get addicted to YouTube, they get addicted to Reddit, and they get addicted to pornography as well, because it is readily available anywhere, anytime for free, right on your smartphone. So but let's understand this, why we need to be a little bit more conscious about introducing such technologies to our children, because you need to understand that how human children evolve over a time. So um, a, a 21-year-old is called as a full legal adult in as per laws or studies which have gone through. But let's have a look at the growth development of a human being. So for the first 2 years, the development, cognitive or physical, for a human being once it's born, or a human child when it's born, happens very fast for the first 2 years. And for the next 7 to 10 years, it slows down a little bit. And then suddenly the kid enters puberty age, and all of a sudden the growth starts happening rapidly fast, the muscle starts building, a lot of changes are going through the body, emotionally as well as physically. And um, after that, once you have gone through this changes physically, emotionally, you are considered to be entering adulthood. But what happens is that during the period when you are going through puberty, or you are in your teenage ages, if our kids are getting introduced to social media technologies, whereby they are exposed to something which we are not able to comprehend fully, or which they are not able to comprehend fully, then the chances or the probability of having anxiousness, or the probability of having mental health issue related cases increases drastically. And evolution has made it like a mandate for human kids or children, that they go through this phase, first 2 years very fast, and then 7 to 10 years slow, and then fast, and that they acquire knowledge through this period there before they are considered fully adult. But let me be very clear on at this point in here, that by adult, or by evolving, I'm not saying that the brain is evolving. By the age of 5, a human children's brain is 90 to 95% developed already. What happens after age of 5 is basically knowledge gathering. As the cognitive development, the brain is fully functional as of 5 years old only, and then afterwards, um, the knowledge gathering period starts. And for a kid, knowledge gathering is by experience, and play introduces that. So play is basically the work of children. Through that, they understand the world, through the conversations which they are having in the playground, through the interactions which they are having in the school, through the interactions they are having at the home, which builds that cognitive development, or which builds that experience. So it is not that you give your children a book and through reading that information their cognitive development happened. It's basically through the experiences. But what is happening in this age right now around us is that the parents are on smartphone, the kids themselves are on the smartphone. I'll give you an example. Recently I went to India, and I was traveling in a train, and there was, on my side berth, there was a kid who was having his own phone and scrolling through reels. Now this kid would probably around 9 years old or 10 years old. He probably had a fantastic opportunity to talk to a stranger, to know about the experiences, or to just wonder about the world. But the kid is not doing that. What the kid is doing right now, just scrolling through the reels. And God knows what reel would come through the next scroll. Who knows what? Only the gods of the algorithms know, not us mortal human beings. So what happens consciously is that, like the author says, is that we are moving from a play based childhood to a more phone based childhood, which deprives the children of these cognitive developments which could happen through interactions and are not happening. So usually the author what the author also suggests in this book is that what could we do to have that particular phase, when I'm saying that when they are going through puberty, a lot is happening emotionally and physically. That is a window of opportunity for parents also to introduce a lot of things, to introduce a lot of experiences also. But the author makes a case, Jonathan had it in this book Anxious Generation, is that don't let that period of opportunity or window go away, and just randomly open your kid to the outside world by introducing the social media. People still don't understand the harms of social media. Organization institutions have now started to realize that, based on the case studies which have been highlighted in this particular book. I mean, like similar case studies which have been highlighted in this book, so much so that Australia as an country has banned, or I'm not very sure, but I think they have banned the use of social media for age of 16 years and below. And but why would governments would do take such a drastic step? And a lot of governments are already, including Singapore, are studying why, what motivated them. Because there would have been cases, and government just don't go by intuition, right? They would have studied the effects of social media on teenagers. That's why they are able to come up with that particular thing. So the age of when the kids are at of teen, it's a window of opportunity for growth. It's also a window of opportunity whereby they can have a downfall. So as a parents, let's be a little bit more conscious of what can be done, or what how can we as parents support or build a runway for the kids so that they can have a fulfilling life ahead. What the author also is saying is that you don't need to build the Rome in one day. It progresses as we go along. So he has given a very fantastic age step by step guide of what can you potentially introduce to your kid as you go along. So at the age of 6, you can start giving your kid a little bit of more family responsibility, like watering the plants or something like that. At age 8, you can give the kid a little bit of local freedom, that you can roam around in the condominium or apartment building on your own without any adult supervision. At the age of 10, you can you can roam around the neighborhood fully. If it is super essential, you can have flip phones with no internet access at all at the age of 10. But if you ask me, just if you can manage, just avoid that as well. At the age of 12 is what the author suggests is the age of apprenticeship. If you can if the kids can have small jobs, like in a restaurant, or helping with a research paper for yourself, or something like a very trivial non-consuming job to give them a little bit more exposure. At the age of 14 is the age of high school, is basically the minimum age to give the smartphone. And when I say smartphone, it is still with no social media applications. Only when they are 16 and above is what should be considered as adult, is basically when they're around 11th year, in 11th standard approximately, right? At 11th standard, you can basically introduce the applications, but only after having a conversation with them, that what could be the pros and cons of having a social media profile. And at the age of 18 is basically a legal adulthood and separation from childhood. So it shouldn't be also that at the age of 18, when they are considered as a fully adult, is when you're introducing the social media applications. Maybe 2 years beforehand you can do that, but before 16 years of age, no social media applications at all. At most, give them a normal phone whereby they can send texts, but not on a social media platform. Now, what the author highlights in the mid of the book is basically the four foundational harms which social media applications are doing to the children of today's age. Like I already introduced these right in the beginning, which is social deprivation, sleep anxiety, attention fragmentation, as well as anxiety. So once the kids are introduced to social media, the time they spend with their friends virtually increases exponentially, yes, but in the physical realm it decreases significantly as well. So they are not spending that physical time with the kids in person. Their sleep quality as well as quantity is decreasing. Attention to stay on something is decreasing, because now the social media applications have figured out a way that more than 3 seconds is it's not something worth a content. And if a human being, be it a millennial or Gen Z, is constantly getting 3 seconds video, and that is what their attention span is, God save them in the real world, when you have to focus on something for half an hour, for 1 hour, or for days altogether. This is altogether a different kind of world they would be going in. So what the author also suggests is that studying these things, there is correlation studies which says that the kids or children who are using social media have a increased probability of having a mental health issue or disorder compared to a very light or no social media user at all. And like I said, that the social media applications, they are more harmful to girls than they are to boys. And he has a dedicated chapter in the book, chapter number 6, which says that why it is more harmful to girls is because he highlights also four ones, because girls are more sensitive to comparison or visual comparison than boys are. So that is the first reason. And girls aggression is often expressed in harming other girls in either relationships or reputation, whereas boys just aim at each other physically. So for girls, the aggression is more expressed in that particular direction. And the third reason is that the girls try share emotions more readily than boys. So if a girl is either speaking to her friends physically in the real world or virtually in the internet world, girls are more inclined to share their emotions, right? And it makes them more vulnerable to the people around them, because not always you can see who is listening. And the fourth reason is that internet has made it more easier for men to stalk girls and behave badly towards them and avoid accountability at all. If a girl or a teenage girl posts a picture of herself on social media app, and the profile is open, any person or any random person on the planet, probably in Brazil or South America, or anywhere in the Europe, can or in Russia, can go to their profile and comment random things and avoid accountability at all. In physical world, not a lot of people would comment something like, oh, the color of your top is not good, or what the clothes you're wearing are stupid, or you're making that face which is not, you're imitating someone. In physical world, because of the accountability issue, not a lot of people would say things like that. But in virtual world, there is no accountability at all. But the person who is receiving the comment definitely gets the same harsh message, whether it's in a physical world or in the virtual world, and that depreciates their self image significantly. So as a parent, if I have to say that, okay, given a option, whether I would introduce my teenager to a social media platform whereby if they're posting something that can be judged by anyone randomly in the world, I will prefer not to, right? So that is the case what has been made in the book also, that there is a time frame of introducing smartphones or social media applications to your kids. Don't get overexcited like people 10 years 15 years back did, because at that time people didn't knew better. When iPads first came, people were buying iPads for their kids left, right, and center, saying that, oh, what we never had, or the technology what we never had, we are giving it to the kids. But it is not so. A human child does not need the support of technological devices so much so that they need in person physical interaction and conversations more. But what happens to the boys? So chapter number 7 in the book talks about that what is happening to the teenage boys, and they are definitely also spending a lot of time in the virtual world. It has increased substantially. Boys are at a greater risk compared to girls uh, in the failure to launch, that they would never develop that cognitive skills or knowledge that which they can practically apply in a corporate world or a business landscape. And it may happen that they never can launch themselves. And so the unemployment, or should, let's not use the word unemployment, let's use the word unemployability, would increase significantly, because the boys are not able to launch themselves because they are spending too much time on Minecraft, they are spending too much time on Reddit, they are spending too much time on YouTube videos. Their outdoor activities has decreased significantly. Mental health has decreased significantly. The kids, the boys can access pornography anywhere, anytime. 10, 15 years back, the first time a kid would watch a pornography probably would be, late teens or something like that. But right now, anyone who has a smartphone, be it a 10-year-old or a 8-year-old, can, or if they are not even by themselves not searching things, the internet has evolved so much so that they can accidentally stumble upon something which makes them curious, and then they go a step further, and then this whole world of dark web kind of opens up, right? um, the boys are spending a lot of time on the virtual world playing multiplayer video games, which consumes time like anything. Like on a day, a kid can, who is playing a multiplayer game like I don't know, War of Crafts, or DOA or something like that, they may spend 10 to 12 hours or probably more just playing video games online. And it is so addictive because your group is also online and you're spending a lot of time in the virtual landscape. Then after highlighting that, how this social media landscape is dangerous to our kids, be it boys or girls, he also talks about that the spiritual elevation and degradation which the social media applications do. Anything, I mean, humans have a social moral compass. Activities which we do make us feel good or bad. If you're going to play and physical sport, for example tennis, it will lift your spirits up, you will think that, oh, I had a better use of my time. But if you on the same Saturday, if you decide to play a video game for the whole day, as you may feel that, because you haven't spent a lot of good time, and the social compass, or the moral compass in you would say other side. So if a teenager is watching a lot of reels, their internal moral compass will say, oh, you have not spent a lot of good time. And over a period, and because it is not also their fault, the technology companies have made these applications so addictive that once you have it, you cannot stop. And the the doom scrolling of 2 hours, 3 hours just goes into that, which is quite depreciating to the health of kids, because after spending that time they feel guilty about it, right? And if that guilt happens over a period of time, it's not good for the mental health of that particular children. um, Also, the social media landscape is quite in contrast to the actual physical world social fabrics. In real world, we are taught to meditate, right? Because it brings less and less thought and you can focus more. In a social media application, every 5 to 10 minutes your kid will get a notification. It will bring them and even if the phone is not ringing, you once you get into the habit of checking it after every 5 to 10 minutes. And religion basically, in the real social fabrics, religion offers that, never judge other people. But in social media, everybody is judging. You're liking, you're commenting. Even if you're not liking or commenting, it means that you're not considering it worthy. So whether you are doing it or not, you're always in that judging space, and so are the other people. So the last part of the book is one of the most important parts, is where the author deep dives into this, saying what can the governments do, what can institutions like schools do, and more importantly, what is the role of a parent, to be honest. And let me summarize the everything into one phrase, whereby they say that the governments can has have the liberty that they can it raise the internet adulthood age to 16, similar to what Australia did, that they have just said that no teenager below the age of 16 can have a social media account. It can Governments can ask the tech companies to treat minors different to adults, and they need to do more on age verification. And what the author also says that, what is the roles, what different schools can do. The what When a school say that they have a no phone policy, what they usually mean is that while the kid or the children is in the classroom, they cannot use the phone, but once they're outside, they can simply use it. But as we all know that a lot of cognitive development or social development happens in a kid outside the classroom, when they are interacting with their friends, either in the library or in the canteen or in the playground, that increases the cognitive development of the kid. So if there they are still only all the time on their phones, desperate that because they were not able to use the phone in the classroom, they come out and start checking their applications and start using that, it's no good. So a better policy what a school can adopt is saying, okay, if you have a phone, you come in, you put it in the locker, and while going home at the end of the day, you can get your phone back. So that will be a little bit more, what the schools can do. What the schools can also do is having more projects based learning, making an environment where kids, two or three or more, are coming together and working on something together. So that will help in the cognitive development, because these kids are not getting enough of that in the physical space outside, whether it is deliberately or indirectly, because everyone is on their smartphone. So conscious effort is required to bring the kids together to do brainstorming. So more classes, more vocational training, and always remember that a ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure, right? So it is, the more the more you do will still be less, because the social media application and the technology is just out there. So let's be a little bit more conscious of when our kids are entering that particular age. And now the author goes into that, what we can do as parents. So um, being a parent is challenging. It is much challenging to us because we have not seen the same kind of parenting style while we were growing up. Our parents had to face other challenges, but it was never a challenge that um, a kid is on the phone all the time. They never had to face that kind of a thing. So a lot of parents right now also don't know how to tackle that kind of interaction in the world right now. So books like this, Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, does help in that. So what the author suggests is that as parents, we need to give our children more unsupervised play time. So like we introduced in the beginning of the book, right, we are overprotecting our kids in the real physical world and underprotecting our kids in the virtual world. So other way round. We need to give them more freedom to explore the physical world. Let's not be very scary when the kid is going on the playground on their own. We used to go to playground all on our own all the time, and let's be honest, there was no playground. It was just a open land where other kids will just come and will start playing. It was not a playground as such. But in today's age, whereby the playgrounds are very well designed, it is designed, if the kid is falling, the ground is made safe, that they don't have major injuries. But in this playground also, we are not allowing our kids to go on their own. So let's try to do that a little bit more. And the author says that the right age to do that is around when they're 7 or 8 year old, to say to them, okay, you can go to the playground on your own, or play with your friends, whether you are having play dates or something, play on your own. Let's have a little bit more unsupervised free play in those world, and let's not try to over engineer the play of our kids. And in the virtual world, what the author says is that absolutely no smartphone before the high school. So before your kid is 14 years old, don't give any kind of smartphone. Between 10 to 14 years age, if your kids, I mean, and then also, like, you are in a situation where you have to communicate with your kids, which if you are living in a AAA country, is honestly, it is also a little bit of overkill. But if it's absolutely required, just buy a very normal phone which doesn't have an internet access between the age of 10 years to 14 years of age. 14 years is the first time when you introduce a smartphone to your kid, but that also make 100% sure, with by having a conversation with your kid or through parental control, that there are no social media applications in your phone. Now, one of the challenge here is also that the social media applications which are social media are may not be the social media what the children may have when they are entering and entering at that point in time. For example, we may see, oh, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp is the social media or likes of it, but a chat box in a virtual game can also be a social media platform where people can exchange information, can exchange phone numbers, can exchange email IDs, or a lot of information about each other. So let's be cognitive about all those things also. So absolutely no social media before 16. uh, let's try to encourage through our voices in schools to have more phone free schools, and far more unsupervised play in 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 the real life, and less less supervision in the physical world and more supervision in the virtual world. We can also help our children through more physical engagement in the real world, either through camps, trips, even for that matter having a gap year and exploring the world. And do I mean bringing the circle the fully around is that the biggest obstacle in your child's cognitive development is the parents' own anxiety as well. So we need to be very much conscious of that, that we should not be passing our insecurities, our FOMOs, or our anxieties to our children also. So that is something which we need to be a little bit more cognizant about it. So in summary, fantastic book, Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haddett. Everyone who has a teenage kid should definitely read it if you are far from that particular time. Uh, it's never too early to start reading this book as a parent or as a guardian or as a member in a community, because through your ideas other people can also learn that how to manage the kids in the social media and technology age. So that was all from my end on Jonathan Had It. So I'm happy to uh, you know take any questions or anything or any interesting thoughts which you have come across through this interesting episode of Anxious Generation. If any interesting comment or observation.
Yeah, thanks, Paras. I think it was a very useful insights, and I've taken some notes and I would love to borrow the book.
Yes,
and,
for
and,
sure.
and give it to Rachna because she deals more with mental health topics than me. I'll
Yeah.
definitely recommend Rachna to read this. this
Yes.
book, and I'll borrow from you shortly. I think, I mean, one part is, I mean, this requires a bit more, like what you mentioned earlier, that it takes a village to, raise a kid.
Yes.
Similarly, addressing this problem requires solution at multiple levels to be done, right?
Correct.
So it's good that, I mean, we take small steps with parents, firstly, stepping up and having control over what the kids are doing. But I think the kids are always outside their visibility, for most of the time as well, especially when they turn teenagers, right? So it requires
Yes.
a broader support of the society, the governments, to the schools where they're studying, etc. as well, right? So
Correct.
I'm not sure what is considering that we are in Singapore,
Yes.
and then I know that in schools the use of iPads start at a very early stage in Singapore.
Yes.
Are you aware about what does Singapore stand on this particular matter and what actions are being taken?
So the applications, the iPads are getting used, but they don't have any social media applications on them. They don't have any media outlets on them. It is same as when we were entering our school labs back in the days, and the computer was not able to do anything. So
Hmm.
it is not very exciting for a kid to just explore any things which is outside of educational purposes. So these iPads are pretty much designed or restrictive to open certain applications only. So it is just an interface rather than an iPad. But an iPad at your home is even with the parental control can download applications, but the iPad at the institutions, for example a Singaporean local school, will not be able or let the children to download any application. It is as good as having a hardware device with buttons on it. It will not do anything outside of that particular thing. But Singapore government is considering or is studying right now the steps which an Australian government took, basically to not let kids below 16 years of age to use social media. More and more as this topic gets discussed, more and more countries will see the side effects or see the harms which social media is doing as the studies goes and the results come. More and more countries and institutions will take suggestive steps to counter this rise of epidemic which is mental health crisis.